What are the next major steps for eMTB? Well, over the last few weeks here in San Remo, Italy, and over in Sintra, Portugal, I've had time to ponder. Right, the focus of this video is very much the next steps which we can expect from e-mountain bikes over the next 12 months. And I think we'll begin with motor gearbox units because I think that's been the big news of the past 24 months. I think it's reasonable to expect that this will be one of the next big steps, especially as Pinion launched their fantastic MGU last year. I think more than that, the fact that you've got great bikes such as the Nicolai that system can be bolted into. Are there question marks around it? Yes, of course there are, because I think none of us knows the reliability involved in the Pinion. From my experience, it's been incredibly reliable out in the mountains and the places that we've ridden. So yeah, I think expect to see more brands delivering MGUs in the next 12 months, which actually brings me on to how far have we actually come? Because I rode a bike, crikey, it's got to be 15 years ago now, which is actually quite ahead of the time. This downhill eMTB, designed and made by Alan Millyard, who's a very clever engineer, and it had some amazing features on it. First of all, it was a gearbox bike. It actually had a Shimano Nexus hub bolted onto above the bottom bracket area. It had a hermetically sealed swinging arm, a one-sided swinging arm, and you could actually remove the back wheel with just one, I think it was a 30mm bolt, but I mean, the features on this bike, the fact that you could actually change gear when the bike was stationary. So in terms of downhill, everybody's talking about gearbox bikes now in the World Cup downhill environment, but a bike such as that was, there were other bikes around at the time which had gearbox, such as the Honda. I think I rode a Solid bike in 2006 which had a gearbox. But my question is, has the mountain bike industry been treading water for the past 12 years? Because Alan Millyard actually tried to sell that design to many big bike brands, and they simply said no. Right, let's get into the thick of it, because I think power is where one of the big changes is going to be in the next 12 months. Now, obviously in 2024, DJI launched the Avanox unit. Fantastic unit, 120 newton meters, 1000 watts peak power in the big full-on power mode. It is quite likely that some of the big players will follow suit when it comes to torque. I mean, I guess their hand is going to be forced in many respects. The great thing about torque, and there is lots of angles to torque and more power. One of the great things about torque, it allows you to tackle ever more technical terrain. So an e-mountain bike ride is both uphill and downhill. I think we're still 10 years away from a wider acceptance or an enthusiasm for riders to ride technical uphill trails, but that's to come. I think what we need to be mindful of as an industry is the fact that, I think there's two things. Do you want more torque? There's torque and there's speed. Torque is about acceleration. It's about maybe heavier riders having better acceleration. What I think we need to be careful to avoid is that mountain biking becomes like a go-kart sport in terms of, are we going to be seeing riders tearing around trail centres at the fastest speed possible? I'm not sure that's the way to go. It's not for me to say, it's for you guys to decide what the future of the sport looks like. But I do think that when it comes to speed, maybe 15 miles per hour is a little bit slow for the UK and other places in Europe. Maybe 20 miles per hour is more sensible, especially when it comes to bikes on the road. But when it comes to off-road, I'm not sure that higher speeds should be a thing that we should be encouraging simply because of the dangers of trail access. So main point, I think there will be more 100 newton meter motors in the next 12 months. But the question then becomes, do we stop at 100? Does it become 120? Does 130? Does 140 become the norm? And the quite interesting part about that story is the fact that, we had a Rocky Mountain bike with 108 newton meters 7 years ago. I mean, why didn't that bike take off? a lot of the time eMTBs are judged on traditional mountain bike criteria when actually eMTBs should have their own criteria. To give you an example, now trail, enduro, downhill MTBs, especially enduro and downhill MTBs, they've actually got heavier over the past decade, not lighter. Now I remember riding Canyon, Senders, Trek Sessions, Mondraker Summums 10, 15 years ago, and they weighed around 15 to 16 kilos. Take a comparison, today's top MTB downhill racer, Amaury Piron, his common cell is closer to 19 kilos. So lots of mountain bikes have actually got heavier in the past 10 to 15 years. If you take a enduro eMTB, let's say enduro eMTB is around 150, 160 mil travel. Now, a mountain bike of that category will weigh in around 15 to 16 kilos. If you add on an eMTB system with, say, a 750 watt hour, let's call it Bosch power tube battery, say a Bosch CX motor on there, plus all the bits and pieces, that's around about 6 to 7 kilos. Bolt that onto a 16 kilo bike, you've got a 23 to 24 kilo bike. All the while, many people in the media are saying, well, you know, mid-travel bikes should be around 20 kilos, when that's actually not really achievable. And if you've got a brand which is telling you you've got an enduro bike which weighs 20 kilos, somebody's telling you porky pies there somewhere. Okay, what we got next? I think categorization is something that the eMTB industry needs to tackle quite quickly, because I think there's a lack of clarity for people buying eMTBs. I mean, you know, 10 years ago, you'd get a 500 watt hour battery with a 80 Newton meter motor and 150 mil travel. That was the norm. That was where most of the bikes were. But now we've got such bikes as cross country, trail, all mountain, enduro, free ride, downhill. So you've got lots of different categories of eMTB. And then you've got different battery capacities. You've got 500s, 625, 750, 800s. You've got range extenders, and then of course the big thing, which is motors. So motors ranging from, what would you say, 35 newton meters up to, with the sweet swap, which is around about 85 newton meters, and then up to like the DJIs, the 120, Rocky Mountain 108. Who knows what's going to come in the next 12 months when it comes to motors, but it's quite complex if you're buying an eMTB. What type of bike is it? Especially because the media, I think, have really got into this whole business of SL type bikes. And they're saying, well, an SL bike needs to be sub 20 kilos. I mean, a trail bike can actually be around about 22 kilos, because if you've got a trail bike that you want a good range on, you need something with a 750 watt hour battery. But if you're a lighter rider, you might want like a 600 watt hour battery, maybe like the Santa Cruz Valor here. But then again, the Valor, you could argue, is more of an enduro bike. So I think this whole business of categorization, we need to fine tune a lot better than the current situation. Unless, of course, we're talking low torque, low power bikes with small fuel tanks, small batteries, in which case I think we'll see a more defined cross-country class rather than lightweight for lightweight's sake. Battery density. I'm sure that we will see improvements to battery density in the next few years, which will actually lead to lighter eMTBs. I mean, let's face it, do we actually need range extenders? Brands make these beautiful eMTBs, and then to get increased range, you've got these range extender bottles which bolt onto the down tube, which renders a beautiful bike a little bit ugly. It's a bit like buying a really nice car and putting a petrol tank on the front seat. I just had to pop down to the car here in San Remo in Italy. So what I've been thinking about is such things as chains. I mean, bell tolls on chains. I mean, chains are great at the moment, but I really do think there's room for chains to be better. And linked to chains, I think gearing. We've got LEM speed, we've got 12-speed gearing. do we actually need that many gears on an eMTB? I think many people would rather see maybe a 2-speed gearbox with a sort of 6, 7 or 8 cassette on the back instead. Hill climbing. Now, few points which I've been party to over the last few months. The manager of a trail centre said to me, nobody does technical hill climbing, but I think it's our responsibility to maybe enthuse people, to inspire people that an eMTB is great for so many things, and included into that is single track downhill and uphill too. One very good journalist said that he felt that going uphill was perverse. I mean, that's in February 2025 in an international mountain bike magazine. So what I say is bring on the uphill rebellion. So take a seat for a minute on that subject. Seat droppers. What an amazing piece of technology which has actually changed how we ride mountain bikes. One request is, can we actually have seat droppers which are electronically adjustable downwards as well as upwards in the future, please? 3 other things which I'd like to pick up on. First one is reliability. Where are we actually at, in all honesty, with reliability? Because I think most motors out there do seem to break down at some point in time. Obviously, there's a separate story about kind of waterproofness and people who live in different climates. The next one is rebuildability. Now, my colleague, the Don, has done a video on rebuildability, and you know, should these motors be fixable? I think most of you guys think they should be. And the final point is pricing. Now, I know that many of you have been asking or commenting on the fact that we've been talking about bikes which are 6,000–7,000 euros and saying that they're not cheap, which I totally agree with. I don't want to go into a rabbit hole of prices, but I think one thing which we should all be mindful of is, are we about to see brands producing eMTBs for 13, 14, 15,000 euros? Is it acceptable? And I mean, the thing is it's not about if it's acceptable, because people will want to buy bikes at that price just to say they've got a bike which is for 15,000 euros. And if there's a value of that, then fair enough. But my message to you is the fact that you can have almost equivalent performance for bikes which are like 5,000–6,000 euros. But that's a subject which I'm going to return to in a future video. So folks, let us know your thoughts on those 10 or more points about what the next steps are. I think there's a massive discussion to have here about the whole thing about power, because I think we're on the verge of changes in the whole business of eMTB. I think we need to be super careful. Thanks for watching, and like I said, let us know your thoughts on all this in the comments and let's have a discussion about it.